welcome back. Thanks for staying with us. The race towards the 55th National Conference of the ANC in December is gaining momentum. Between the 16th and the 20th of December, new leaders will be elected to determine the direction of the party. Now, recently, President Cyril Ramaphosa has received more nods from ANC structures despite the Phala Phala scandal. For more on this, we're joined by Nomvula Mokonyane, the ANC NEC member and party's Deputy Secretary General. Hopeful Nomvula Mokonyane joining us in studio. Very good evening to you. Thank you so much for coming to see us. I see you got the memo. We're both dressed in yellow.
Yes, we got the signal. Good evening to you and evening to the viewers of Newzroom.
The ANC has faced some really serious challenges. It's been a really tough time, especially looking at how high the stakes are, members vying for power. You just came out of your first face-to-face NEC since COVID-19. What did you make of it? I mean, going in after not seeing each other for so long, almost like partners who are dating.
Long-distance relationship.
Yes, and now have grown apart. Do you think that's the position with, looking at, the dynamics in the ANC and your role as the convener, the head, yeah.
Yes, I think last week was a reflection of course, a long-distance relationship. People who have been communicating on virtual, except those that are meeting in cabinet and those that work in Lutuli. But in the main, a formal NEC, the first time since the lockdown coming together. And many of us said how we wish we could have had 2, 3 other NEC meetings prior to going to Nasrec. Mm-hmm. Yes, that has been a contributing factor on where we are as leadership. And amongst other things that we also take cognizance of is that in as much as we were meeting for the first time since COVID, since the first lockdown that was announced, branches and members of the ANC have been meeting. Structures of the ANC have been functioning. What has been a challenge has been the inability of us at the national level being able to carry them, and that I believe we could have done better. I do believe that we could have done better, but here we are. It's time now to go back to the national conference and account on what we have been mandated to do. Amongst others, it's about building unity, renewing the ANC, and rebuilding the African National Congress. So we'll have to reflect on ourselves as the National Executive Committee. We'll have to reflect on ourselves also as ordinary members of the ANC. And fortunately, many of our branches, many of our regions and provinces who are now left with 2 that are outstanding have had an opportunity of doing a self-introspection. Yeah. And for us, it was the first time this past weekend.
In your efforts for introspection and really going out to try and look internally, you've called the ANC under President Ramaphosa as the weakest. In fact, you've graded it, according to some articles that I read, you graded it an F. And if you ask the matric class of 2022 how bad an F would be, it would really be a terrible thing. So talk to us then about what's driving that.
Not the ANC, yeah. The national leadership. Yeah. The national leadership has not responded to the challenges of the times. We were a national executive committee that was on 2 different slates. Very clear. Nkosazana here, Cyril this side. Branches of the ANC delegates at Nasrec broke those slates. And some amongst us were very committed to receive and welcome the outcomes of the conference. But some amongst us were hell-bent to maintain an adversarial relationship to an extent where even now going into the national conference and as we work towards the rebuilding of structures, they would forever characterize themselves as defenders of the president, as if he is their president. And some amongst us have refused to be identified as defenders of anything but the organization.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so where are you standing then?
Look, I'm on record. Yeah. And thanks to Nkosazana, I want to repeat it. When we lost in Nasrec, surprisingly so, she called us outside and she said, let's live with the outcomes of the conference. Let's embrace the leadership. Thank you for your support. And what did we do? On the 3rd of January 2018, we were in the Eastern Cape, we were campaigning, and you're saying, me personally. There are footages that can tell you that I'm one of those people that said, Nasrec broke the slates. We are the organization led by Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, the president. And I still maintain, until such time we get into the national conference.
Yeah.
And that's why we have refused to be identified as anything else. And thanks that our preferred candidate herself carried herself up till today as a member of the NEC, who will go into meetings and raise issues inside the meeting and do the organizational work. And over the past 2 years of COVID, we know how she worked under the leadership of President Cyril Ramaphosa to carry a very difficult task, where she was even at some instances singled out as if it is not a decision of government on the issues of tobacco, on the issues of alcohol, and so on and so forth. But we are here now today. We are here now today. In a few weeks' time, all of us, our term would have come to an end. And as I've said, we could have done better. And unfortunately, we have not been able to rise above what is a call from the previous conference of unity, uniting ourselves first. But of course, there are some of us who can relate with anybody and everybody. Some may think we're selling out. Some may think that we're asking for favors, and others will believe that they are defending the president, and yet he's not their little entity. He's the president of all of us, because we must respect the office. If tomorrow somebody else is a president, you can't also expect that if it is your preferred candidate or your preferred president, you then act in a manner that will bring the office into a situation where it gets undermined. So this is where we are as the NEC. But I'm quite happy, and I give gratitude. And all of us, even in the last NEC last week, this time, we all gave gratitude to members of the ANC, who even in the midst of a hard lockdown, they set up the COVID forums. They worked with the Department of Education to assist kids going back to school. They worked with the Women's League that has been disbanded. That did very well. That carried the ANC with Molo Makelwane. And on the anti-women and child abuse campaigns, we've seen the Northern Cape in the midst of, I think it was level 4, where they went to a conference. And it was something that, for the first time, the ANC had to convene a conference under COVID regulations. And Limpopo followed with 5 regional conferences. And throughout that time, we could not come together. Of course, there were challenges of finances, but I do believe that it's not an excuse. If a branch can meet, if a region can meet, if a province can meet, we can't say finances are a challenge, because many of us can take ourselves anywhere where a meeting is convened.
Let's go back. As you speak about Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, we know that having tried in 2017, not giving up, the conversation around South Africa's female president has sort of died down, the possibility of having a female president. I mean, what does that mean internally, especially as you speak about the Women's League? I heard Batabile Dlamini spoke to her, and she was also very unhappy about what's happened under Ramaphosa leadership with the leagues, also looking at the ANC Youth League. Where's the conversation? Where are women in the ANC?
That's a good question. I'm here.
Yes.
There are many women who are present. And the part of the responsibility of the Women's League is to do advocacy work and influence ANC policies. Of course, the NEC of the Women's League had actually overstayed their term in terms of the constitution. But it is an NEC that did a lot of good work. As I've said, it did a lot of campaigning for elections. It did a lot of campaigning on the solidarity and support for victims and families affected by COVID in terms of loss of income and so on, and loss of life. It also did a lot of work of international solidarity, working with the province of Gauteng and the region of Johannesburg. The Western Cape and the Eastern Cape. They did a lot of work around those things. And I think whether we like it or not, we must accept that with that decision of just deciding to dissolve the entire Women's League, of course, the Constitution says they've overstayed their welcome, but we understood that they couldn't convene their conference during COVID, and they were ready to go to conference. But then I also endorsed the decision of the NEC that then decided to reconstitute a national task team. We could have done it like we've done with other provinces, where when you reconstitute, you also identify people that have been there and put them. And we are the last to say we couldn't bring Miocho, we couldn't bring Mantombela, we couldn't bring Batabile because they are fighting. We fight more than the Women's League. So in our quest for unity, and that's what I am on record having said, we should have forced these women to work together, because in their diversity and in their own battles, they all worked together because they understood, they shared a common purpose, which was to fight for the rights of women, which was to give solidarity and care. They were now running one household, one food garden under the Charlotte Matake program. They were running Molo Makelwane to do the house-to-house visits.
To hold our conversation here as we continue, of course, to speak to Nomvula Mokonyane, the ANC NEC member and party's Deputy Secretary General, hopeful. That conversation, that leg of the conversation, coming up shortly after this. Don't go away. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us as we continue our conversation with Nomvula Mokonyane, the ANC NEC member and the party's Deputy Secretary General, hopeful. Thank you so much for staying with us. I mean, before the break, we were talking about the role of the ANC Women's League and the women within the ANC. And, you know, a lot of criticism always goes to where are the women when it comes to matters that affect the country. I mean, the horrors that we've experienced this year, one would have expected to see the ANC Women's League coming out to say something. I mean, your Mama Action, motherly figure, together with the many women within the party.
The ANC, together with members of the ANC Women's League, have been everywhere, including myself. Just today, amongst other areas I was in a community where you have children that have also been affected by gender-based violence. We are now dealing with a senior citizen in Soweto, a 93-year-old who has also been abused. We've just dealt, we are also still dealing with the aftermath of that unacceptable incident in Kagiso, in Krugersdorp. We're giving support to those families of the kids, the young women who heard in court that those suspects have been acquitted. There's trauma, there's anxiety. We are doing exactly that. The body, the ANC Women's League, national, at the ground level, at the local level. I was in Western area yesterday where we were going to pay condolences on a member of the Young Women's Desk who has passed on. And members of the Women's League are busy working in those communities in terms of victim support, continuous work around Molo Makelwane. In that summit that was convened, the presidential summit, majority of those women who are in civil society organizations are members of the ANC Women's League in their own right. What has been missing possibly, and I don't want to speak on behalf of the Women's League, they have the right to come and speak, but as the head of organizing and campaigns in the ANC, we've worked in the Eastern Cape, we've been working in Gauteng, we've been working in the Northwest, we've been working in Limpopo, led by the ANC and the Women's League coming on board, taking up these issues, but also being very frontal with our government about the missing gaps, the things that really do need attention of government, whilst we understand that also these kind of things are societal issues that have to be attended to. That disbandment and then a decision to disband every structure up to the branch has got impact, because then there's uncertainty as to who leads. And I think it is those lessons that we must learn, so that when we're saying constitutionally your time has lapsed, how do we make sure that we do not create a vacuum?
Yeah.
Because that's what has happened. I am aware that even as we speak now, there are regions in some of our provinces that you still do not have RTTs of the ANC Women's League. But you have activists of the Women's League who are still doing their work.
So who is to blame here? I mean, fingers have been pointed on President Ramaphosa.
Fingers must be pointed at the NEC of the ANC, including me and President Ramaphosa. Because it is the decisions that we take. Because there must be a soft landing on a decision you take, so that the organization doesn't get demobilized. The same as with the ANC. You know, we have had years of task teams in the Free State. We have had years of task teams in the Northwest. And what has been good is that now we've got elected leaders there, though it has taken a lot of time.
Yeah.
And singling out an individual will not be the right thing. Of course, at the end of the day, there's a leader. What is the challenge is, how does the NEC of the ANC take decisions that do not actually demobilize forces on the ground? And I think for this term, that has been a major blow on any decision we take that hampers on the functioning of the organization. Going to conference, it is those things that we definitely have to look at. A simple thing. If an organization, all of us say, thanks to the Women's League for carrying us during the COVID, leaders of the ANC were locked in their homes. But leaders of the Women's League were going out, doing everything, and even burying, assisting to bury the dead. So we must then be saying, albeit a constitutional requirement that says when you have reached a time where your term of office has lapsed, what do you do? It must not erode the presence and the functioning of an organization. And what has happened now, everybody is now waiting for a task team. Everybody, it's national, we have a task team. Now we're waiting for a provincial task team. It is there. Now we're waiting for a regional task team. Now we're going to wait for a branch task team. We must say, in terms of organizational development, how do you preserve the functionality of the organization as you deal with the constitutional requirement?
Yeah. In the demobilization, sector, the part that you talk about, how you can't have the party demobilized. I mean, one aspect, perhaps one of many aspects, would be Phala Phala. How much demobilization, when it comes to the stability and the image and the integrity of the party, how much of an impact do you think that has in denting the image of the ANC?
I think what has been unfortunate is how the Integrity Commission has handled this matter. And I heard one of our leaders speaking in one of the platforms last night, saying, I didn't ask those questions that I said there is yet to be answered. We were all told, and we all supported, that the president is going to present himself before the Integrity Commission. He has done that. We were then told in the working committee that the Integrity Commission will bring the report. Yeah. The report was never served. We're told, no, you'll find it in the NEC. We arrive in the NEC, there's no report. So it is not the NEC, nor it is the president, but it is the ANC process that we all said everybody must follow. And for the Integrity Commission not to appreciate that this matter then creates uncertainties, but also there are inconsistencies. And for the person who spoke last night with Vuyo Mvoko, to say, I didn't ask a question, a follow-up, I wouldn't ask the president about Phala Phala, because we all said the person must subject himself to the Integrity Commission. And the Integrity Commission opted not to come. And fortunately, when other reports were presented of the Integrity Commission, the president was the presiding officer of the meeting. And some of us stood up, and the president agreed with us that the inconsistencies are a problem. And the meeting then resolved that because on these matters we don't have a report, let these matters not be discussed, let them be noted. And I think going into the national conference, it is those things that we must look at, because had the Integrity Commission brought the report, not the president telling us, we will be in a better position. Why will I ask President Cyril Ramaphosa about Phalaphala? I will not ask him. I will make observations. And he agreed, by the way, that indeed the inconsistencies, and the meeting then resolved that the Integrity Commission must be met, and it must be told that as it deals with anyone, it must be seen to be consistent.
I mean, was there satisfaction in terms of the response from the president?
There was no discussion on the president's response to the issue. And in actual fact, he was not responding. The matter was raised in the meeting that we must discuss this. And as some of us have said, it was not on the agenda. Everybody felt, including the chair, was saying, Phalaphala is as I can't report the Integrity Commission from the NWC. And it was never there. So these things that other people are playing around and want to be holier than thou, like the gentleman who spoke last night, I think it's just not fair. Because how do you, like any other member of the NEC who has presented him or herself before the Integrity Commission, how do you then expect some of us to get clarity from the president? Because the president would have clarified the Integrity Commission, and the report comes to the NEC. The NEC receives reports of the Integrity Commission. But we also know there are instances where the Integrity Commission doesn't even wait for you to present yourself. They'll just fire on you and decide, would you listen, this one must not even go to Parliament. This one is corrupt. I think it was a proper decision of the NEC to say there must be a meeting, and a meeting of minds with the officials of the ANC, just to impress upon the Integrity Commission on these matters. We were in the NEC. We had in the papers that there's a document and whatever the leaks. That thing was never in our meeting. And remember, they're saying it's a draft, so a draft can't be in the NEC. So many people expect us to be discussing Parliament. We discussed the state of the organization. We discussed the economy. We discussed the issues of the energy crisis. We discussed the issues of peace and stability in our country. We discussed the cost of living in our country. And we identified things that are in our constitution that require conference to amend. And that's what we dealt with. And hence I'm saying, imagine if all those items we were having in-person meetings and have that jovial mood. In fact, sometimes I wish people can be a fly in the NEC meetings because we speak our minds. The unfortunate thing, there are people who tell the public that I'm going to go into the NEC and say this, and they never speak.
So, in fact, as you speak about the weight of the NEC, I mean, the description that you gave, in terms of priorities on discussion points, I mean, is that one of the reasons why you spoke to the level of weakness, describing it as the weakest in the ANC's history?
And I'm saying it is the weakest in the history of the ANC, because even ANC literature tells you what the national leadership of the ANC does when the organization is getting divided or it's facing challenges. And unfortunately, we could not actually come in and deal with those issues. And it is now late in the day. We'll have to go to conference and hope the incoming NEC will not be as subjective as we were. And I'm saying me included, because I may not be, but somebody may assume that I am. That we really need to work together. And the strength of the ANC is its diversity. We can't all be drum majorettes. And the challenges of every leader of the ANC is when there are people who claim that they love the president more than anyone else. And they would want to be like the ones who must be respected. Look, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa is the president of the ANC.
Yeah.
His term is coming to an end when my term comes to an end. When we have differences, we'll raise them in the meeting. About him as a person, he knows. We speak our mind. He speaks his mind. When there are decisions of the ANC, I live with those decisions. He lives with those decisions. He will have to live with those decisions of the ANC. I've lived with those decisions. Many have lived with those decisions. What is at stake now? What is at stake now is that we've lost so many opportunities. When a nation is facing a serious challenge of gender-based violence, a 93-year-old, a mother killing 4-year-olds.
Yeah.
Those kind of things, the COVID experience.
As you speak about the challenges of the nation, and you speak about having to live with decisions and the challenges of every leader of the ANC, I mean, looking back as far as 2017, in fact, we're learning of water challenges. Water challenges, Senzo Mkhunu was promising some residents, some that they will have water in their taps. But like some of the decisions have your name linked to them as minister at the time, when it comes to the controversial Giyani bulk water project, for instance, which was supposed to be completed in 2017, plagued by a lot of controversy, failures, a massive budget, 4 billion rands in public funds spent on it, and the allegations of tender irregularities and corruption all emerged under your watch as Minister of Water and Sanitation.
And here I am standing.
Yeah.
If you talk to the SIU, they will tell you. In fact, it is me who brought them into the department, even around this particular project. Even at a time when some of the officials were running away, I had to bring them on board and say, come, you must cooperate with the SIU. Babu Mchiba can tell you, I am on record and I have never acted outside of my authority. As it is known, the executive is not the one who appoints and all those things. We came into the Department of Water. There were 12 companies that were appointed, that were in the panel. And that department operated on the basis of panels. They never went on tender. I don't know, from time immemorial.
Yeah.
So I'm saying those issues, like if you get to the SIU, they will tell you, I am the one who brought them in. I am the one who had to ask officials and summon them to say, you'll sit here, SIU sit here, talk to these people, cooperate with everybody. You want to know what was my role? Follow the records of the department.
What about the head of the Lepelle Northern Water, Phineas Logodu, who spilled the beans, throwing you under the bus, saying you made him do it? He says that you ordered him to illegally appoint LTE Consulting. As a result, as you and I speak, there's no water, and it's years
But
later.
it is also an exaggeration to say there's no water. The project has been implemented. It's not completed.
Yeah.
That's what is known. Let me finish.
Yes.
The project is implemented. It's not been completed. Secondly, if he has said that, surely by now they would have come to me. There would have been evidence in that regard that I've told him to do whatever. There are government processes. And hence I am ready. As I was ready, like I said, I brought the SIU there. I've cooperated. I've said everything. And I believe that if there is any wrongdoing, let it be brought forward. Let it be brought forward. I've been judged by some in the media and convicted by some in the media. Allow these processes that I am aware that they're in court now. Allow those processes to proceed. But peddling, I think some of us have been casualties of things being peddled in our names, but not even been given an opportunity to explain, even those who are saying things, not being able to give themselves time to understand how the system works. Yeah. And I do believe that, of course, we could have done better, not during my term, but throughout.
I'm going to ask you to hold that thought. We will continue to finish and conclude the conversation shortly after this. Don't go away. Right, I'm still joined by Nomvula Mokonyane, ANC NEC member in studio as we wrap up our conversation. Yeah, well, the night is young, but we will be wrapping up in a short bit. Now, you speak about some of the casualties of peddling. State capture, Bosasa, what's happening there with how you're dealing with this with your lawyers?
I'm taking it for review. Simple thing. I've never worked in a portfolio that Bosasa has a contract in. Secondly, I've never been a minister or whatever, or where I have been, where Bosasa would have been given a contract with my name or signature in it. I've never done that. Thirdly, I also find it very unfortunate that in the midst of that report, I'm told that it is said to you and everybody that I'm this influential person that influenced that Bosasa will not be prosecuted. I've never been in NPA. I've never been in the Department of Justice. Thirdly, the issue of Bosasa, everybody knows. It's festive now. Yesterday and today, we're all communicating, we're getting donations, and people are doing charity work. They're inviting us. Who doesn't know that come festive season, people do make these offers and donations, and Bosasa happened to be in the West Rand, and it was not only doing everything in the West Rand. I don't actually understand. And in terms of corruption and stuff, surely there's a corruptor and a corruptee. He himself said, that man who appeared there, that was the sole dependent of the information for the commission, said the relationship was a useless one because they never got anything from me. But then their summary comes back and say, everything of Bosasa has to do with me.
Okay. Very quickly, before we let you go, you say that you were approached by provinces for the role of DSG, and you said, I heard that it's not the first time that this has happened. Talk to us about, the role and the build-up to it, and what it means for you. And also, I mean, why deputize?
And not president.
Yeah.
Well, people approached me, members of the ANC, and then I said, let's allow the nominations to unfold. The nominations have happened. We have had discussions about what would be the responsibility, and part of it has been about organizational development, management of the organizational programs, interaction with other organizations and forces on campaigns and stuff. And they said, this is where we find your strength. Of course, it started in Mahikeng when I was nominated, and I declined. There were so many other women. It went to Polokwane. It went to Mangaung. It came to Nasrec, and here we are today. And for me, it's because I respect the hierarchy of the organization, especially on women. There are women who came before me that I would rather work for them and be led by them. And I do believe that it is my generation's time, and I respect those branches and leaders who then came to me and said, you are now the next generation that has to be part of this collective at a particular level. And I never went out to ask for a vote. It's branches and structures that came to me and said, in the hierarchy of the movement, in the generations in the ANC, you are the next generation.
Yeah, and I know you're making reference there to other women before you, very close relations you had with Jesse Duarte. And also, do you think that you're the best candidate for the job? I mean, what makes you confident enough that you'll be able to fulfill it and that you'll do a great job?
I count on a collective that will be elected. I do count on the collective, but most importantly, I depend on those branches that nominated me, because they will be the ones that would have to do the work. I will not be everywhere, and I have the ability to work with everybody, irrespective of the standard or the status. And that's why I'm Mama Action, because I relate with anyone, and I'm also a mother to everyone, and I'm a comrade to everyone, and I'm a friend to anyone, and I do give myself time to reach out to people, even those who have an adversarial relationship with me. I still greet them, I pray for them, I push them to work.
Very well. Thank you so much. What a pleasure. Thanks for joining us in studio. Nomvula Mokonyane, ANC NEC member and the party's Deputy Secretary General, hopeful.